Hi guys, today we're going to talk about advertising, sales promotion, and public relations. For those of you who heard these lectures before, I'm going to do them in the same way. I'm sending you the notes, and what I will do is I'll go through each of the slides, and then when I'm done with the slide, I'll say next slide, and we'll go on from there. And I'm of course available for questions or whatever by email or Skype or in my office hours. Okay? Let's get started. So we're going to do chapter 13, advertising, sales promotion, and public relations. And we'll start right now. So in this lecture, we're going to talk about what advertising is, describe the major types of advertising, and discuss some of the criticisms that people have of advertising. We're going to talk about the process of developing an advertising campaign and how marketers evaluate their advertising campaigns. We're going to explain the role of public relations and the steps in developing a public relations campaign. And finally, we're going to explain what sales promotion is and describe the different types of consumer sales promotion activities. A couple things I should note is that one thing is I'll talk faster when I'm presenting this way than I would in class. Obviously, you have the ability to rewind or go back for any material. And also, if you see me looking off to my left, that's because I have another computer on with the slides, and I'm using those to go through. So, okay, so we just did the chapter objectives, and now we're going to move on to the next slide. Okay, so the image of marketing. What's happening with traditional advertising expenditures is that they're declining. They're becoming more and more. There are more and more non-traditional outlets. So besides billboards and magazines and television and radio ads, there's a whole host of online things now that people are utilizing, as well as guerrilla marketing, which we talked about a little bit in class. But is, let's say I have a clothing store, and I'll go out before the night before a big sale, and I'll stretch lines across and hang jeans all over the street with some kind of notification of the sale at my store, and it's a guerrilla notification of the sale. So it's a guerrilla marketing is what it's called. Marketers are diverting more and more funds to these alternate types of advertising, including online, but advertising is still the best way to reach large audiences. It's just superior. It's very easy to do, and it's pretty cost effective on a per person basis. Okay, next slide. We're at the types of advertising. Advertising is a pretty straightforward thing, and I think it's something that you're intimately familiar with. You're exposed to advertising all the time. There's a couple different types of advertising. There's product advertising, which focuses on a specific good or service. For example, okay, Natural Harmony crafted teas. This is if I saw an advertisement on television for the tea, it's very straightforward. It's product. I would know what I'm buying. For Apple computers, same thing. For Miller beer, for Coca-Cola, for Frito-Lay chips, a whole host of things, but they're very specific, and the advertising is for that particular product. It can also be a service such as financial services, barbers, legal services, those commercials that you see on TV for lawyers for liability, and they'll defend you or for melanoma or whatever. So you can see a lot of that on television as well, and also in advertising in newspapers, magazines, billboards, etc. Then there's also what we would call institutional advertising, and this promotes the activities, personality, or point of view of the organization or company. There's three different types primarily. There's corporate advertising, which talks about the corporation in some way. There's advocacy advertising, which advocates for some position that the corporation has. And then there's also public service announcements. Now, as we move on, your first question is going to be, well, what's the difference between advocacy advertising and public service announcements? And it's pretty hard to define. They're really intertwined quite a bit. But I kind of think of advocacy advertising as having a general point of view of the firm towards some entity or some issue, where public service announcements does not really state the corporation's point of view. They're provided to help people. For example, in the U.S., the CBS network does the CBS Cares series, and they'll talk about a whole host of different health issues, colon cancer, depression. They'll have Mark Harmon from NCIS talk about delayed stress disorder. All of those things are public service announcements and don't really necessarily refer to CBS in any way. Okay, so next slide. Corporate advertising, I've provided two different examples here. First is a balloon painted with US Bank. It's an advertisement just to let people know that US Bank is out there. Obviously, US Bank and a hot air balloon doesn't necessarily have a lot of tie-ins, but people always look to the sky when they see hot air balloons, and it's a good chance for US Bank to get noticed. The second one is a magazine ad for GE for clean energy, and once again, it advocates talks about the corporation, talks about what they're doing, talks about that they're working on cleaner energy. Okay, next slide. Advocacy advertising. First off, you have Absolute Vodka. The gay community was neglected for many, many years, and now there is a pretty large amount of advocacy advertising coming out in support of that community, and this is an example of one. And then Nivea, the people who make various lotions and such, they have one advocating for climate change to make sure that the Earth survives, and they're interested in that particular point of view. Okay, next one. And then we have public service announcements. This one's a pretty powerful ad. It comes from a surprising place, from a personal injury attorney firm, but it's to advocate not to text and drive, and you can see the imagery is pretty intense. Another example of this in a lot of European countries is and Australia, they'll give you a picture of somebody's lung that has been smoking for 50 years on cigarette packs and other places to try to discourage you from smoking. And so just kind of a general announcement. Public service announcements, ads, but also we often think of them as television announcements. As I mentioned, the CBS Cares series on CBS networks that talk about different health issues. Okay, next slide. And then there's the type of advertising you're probably most familiar with, retail or local advertising. These would be flyers in the mail, flyers in the newspaper. Target discount stores produces a flyer each week stating what's on sale, what they have. Mom and pops advertise different things. You'll see advertising in the store here. It's what is it, Narvesen? It's kind of like a Wawa, and they're advertising. It used to be that they'd advertise a hot dog and 2 Cokes for a given price, and of late they've been advertising a pizza or two pieces of pizza and a Coke or something like that for 40 kroner. So it's a universal type thing as well. So it encourages customers to shop at a specific store or use a local service. And the ad copy, if it's in a newspaper, would talk about what hours the store is open, where the store is located, any sales they might have, some feature products, and such. Okay? Okay, next ad. Next ad, yeah. Next slide. Who creates advertising? An advertising campaign is a coordinated plan that carries out promotion activities for a firm, and often these activities are outsourced to professional advertising agencies that can provide more or less service. And you'll see that discussion in your book. But often an outside agency will oversee the campaign due to the specialized knowledge necessary to make sure the ad campaign is successful. Okay, next slide. We're on the ethical issues in marketing slide. So there's a number of people criticize advertising for a number of different reasons. One is they say it's manipulative, that it induces you to do something that you may not otherwise do. There's a lot of more extreme things, but for example, the buy 2, get 3, it's inducing you to get 3 of something or to buy more of it right now when maybe you only really wanted 1 package. Or you're buying 3 of something because you can save and you get something for free. So a lot of times it will manipulate you into doing something that you're not necessarily planning to do. There's an argument that advertising is deceptive and untruthful. Usually for mainstream firms, this isn't the case, but a lot of late night advertising in the US will advertise products of dubious quality. For example, they have it looks almost like a bubble gum that's supposed to seal pipes for leaks and create all these great things, and or the Sham Wow, those types of products. So sometimes those ads can be deceptive and untruthful. Okay, advertising is offensive and in bad taste. That one's hard to tell. That's really an eye of the beholder thing. One person's ad that thinks it's you think an ad is funny may be offensive to someone else. So it's really kind of hard to say, but obviously almost anything that you can think of is offensive to someone somewhere. So bear that in mind. Advertising creates and perpetuates stereotypes. This is true. I mean, you never see, if you're seeing a suntan lotion ad, you never see an extremely overweight male or female advertising suntan lotion. It's always somebody who is very physically fit. The dimensions may not be totally realistic, and so it does perpetuate the stereotypes of, the beauty stereotypes for young girls and stuff that, we have a lot of, especially in the U.S., we have a lot of problems with young girls always want to be, more like a Barbie, and Barbie isn't necessarily a realistic body type. So at all, from what I've heard, is that it can't be a realistic body type. And then advertising causes people to buy things that they don't really need. That happens a lot. If you think about it, advertising, you get a coupon in the mail that says you can buy some type of new chip product or pancakes or some type of product at the grocery store. It's not a product that you would normally buy or consume, but because you have the coupon, you feel like you should get it. You don't really need it, but you're still going to get it because you have this coupon. Okay, next slide. Okay, so the steps in developing an advertising campaign, there's 6 of them. The first thing is to identify who you want to reach with the advertising campaign. What are the characteristics of the population that you're trying to buy your product, trying to get to buy your product? So you in order to determine this, you have to conduct some research and figure out what individuals would be most interested in your product and what individuals you think you can realistically reach, and how you want to position your product and all the other things that we've talked to in the various chapters up till now. Then you want to establish your message and also your budget. You want to decide like what do you want to say in your advertising? What are you trying to convey? If you're Walmart, perhaps you're trying to convey that you're the low cost source of products for people. If you're Macy's, you may be trying to, produce the image or send the message that you are the high service, higher cost provider of various products, but of good quality, things like that. And also you have to look at your budget and be realistic about how much money you have to spend on your advertising campaign. If you're a small mom and pop and you say, hey, I want to do a nationwide advertising campaign, one, it probably doesn't make much sense because the population is wrong. Everybody's not going to be coming to a small mom and pop grocery store in Philadelphia because why would they? So that you probably want to concentrate your dollars in a different way. Okay, next slide. Step 3 is to create the ads. This is the creative strategy, the process that turns the concept, something funny, the Budweiser bullfrogs, a whole host of different ads that you can think of that are funny, that are sexy, whatever they are. It's the process that turns that concept into an advertisement. The advertising appeal is the central idea or theme of the ad. Usually people use humor, they use sex, they use slice of life. There's a number of different appeals you can use, and all of them are effective in various ways, and it depends on the product that you're trying to conceive or the message that you are trying to get out into the marketplace, I should say. The execution format, how you're actually going to structure your message. So kind of like when you plan out a paper for any course, you plan out the structure of the paper. Same thing for the ad. You think about what's going to be at the top, how big the font's going to be, what kind of pictures are going to be involved, how much additional information is going to be provided in the ad, what about contact information, all of those things are what you think about in that part. And then tonality, the mood or attitude the message conveys. We've all seen beer commercials, and they usually they convey fun, having a good time, things like that. But obviously, that might work for that particular product, but other products, it may not work as well. For example, breast cancer, it's much more serious, and the tonality is a much more serious ad than something like a Budweiser commercial. Okay, next slide. Okay, step 4, pre-test what the ads will say. So you minimize mistakes by trying to test the ad out with a smaller group of people before they appear in the media. One of the famous examples of someone who didn't do this is the Nova car. For the Hispanic market in the United States, Nova means no go, and they didn't test it out. And when they advertised it and put it out there, obviously it did not, wasn't conveyed very well. There was also a beer that came out that in the language of the marketplace that they were selling it to meant get diarrhea. Obviously, that product didn't sell too well either. I don't think you guys would buy that, even no matter how cheap it was. I don't think you'd buy that particular beer. Okay, next slide. Okay, step 5, choose the media types. Where are you going to advertise? What are you going to advertise? Are you going to do billboards? Are you going to do magazines? Are you going to do newspapers? Are you going to do radio? Are you going to do TV? What method are you going to use to get your product out there? And that's some of the things you have to think about. So the process of developing media objectives, strategies, and tactics, how you're going to actually do it. Step 6 is the post-test. So overall, you might do a small test market, and then you figure out how well your advertising did. If you talk about or ask about a product and don't provide the customers with any type of hints, so that's unaided recall, how many of them, what percentage of them can recall the product? If you aid them in some way, what percentage can then recall the product? And then attitudinal measures. Exxon had the big Valdez oil spill. Obviously attitudinal measures became important to Exxon, and over time those measures have changed. They were extremely low during the Exxon Valdez era, and now they have come up a little bit. But obviously attitudinal measures towards advertising and the company are important. Okay, next slide. Okay, some of the pros and cons of different things. I think these are, you probably intuitively know these. Television, high cost is the primary negative. Getting a spot when you want to be able to advertise. The pros are, a picture is worth 1,000 words and a movie's worth 10,000. So a moving picture can really make a big difference. It provides credibility to a product. You see it on TV and people think, oh, okay, that's a credible product. Radio, the big negative obviously is there's no visual cues that you can use in the advertising. There's no way to, to show the product. You have to do it all with sound. So they'll often use things like cell phone ringing or screeching tires or something like that to get your attention to listen to the advertisement, because they don't have the ability to use any kind of visual stimuli. Newspapers, declining circulations, relatively cheap. Oh, that's the other thing too for radio. Radio is relatively cheap. Newspapers relatively cheap. Usually black and white ads, color ads are a lot more expensive, but the declining circulations are having a big impact. Student newspapers used to be a big source of advertising for the local businesses. They would advertise to students through the student newspapers, but that has declined a lot because very few students read the student newspapers anymore. If you looked around and asked 5 friends, maybe one of you read the student newspaper today. So it really does change a lot. And then magazines, a little bit better, nicer copy, a little bit more defined photos, a little bit higher quality. Newspapers, magazines, one of the benefits is that they do have a lot of pass-on type things. So you read it and then pass it on to a friend. So even though you're paying for one placement of your ad, multiple people can see the ad. So that's a big advantage of those. For television and radio, another one of the detriments that I should have mentioned is that if you don't see the ad or you don't hear the ad on the radio, it's gone forever and you don't get to see it. So that money is wasted in that it never reached certain people who weren't paying attention or weren't tuned in or whatever. Okay, next slide. Okay, digital media becoming more and more important. And I just basically listed out some different examples for you. You have website advertising. Different websites make money by allowing ads on their websites. Generally, obviously, you want a website that's similar to whatever product you're carrying. It can be difficult though because there's conflict of interest. Obviously, if they're selling a product similar to yours, they don't want your advertising on their particular website. So it's often complementary products. So something that will also work well with whatever they're selling. Banners and buttons, you're familiar with. Pop-up ads, which are annoying, and I'm sure all of us are really familiar with that. Let's see, on YouTube, for example, the pop-up ads are becoming really annoying. If you listen to a music video or something, often every couple seconds another pop-up ad will come up trying to advertise a different song, different things, and it's distracting from what you're trying to watch. Search engine and directory listings you're pretty familiar with, and then email advertising. You can do mass emails. You can do concentrated emails. There's a requirement that people opt into the email campaigns. So anyway, there's a lot of different ways you can use digital media to circulate your product. Okay, next slide. Okay, branded entertainment. Here's another one that you see every now and then. I'm using an older example for this, but a form of advertising which marketers integrate product into the entertainment venues. A lot of times when you see movies, there'll be, characters will be drinking a Coke, drinking a Mountain Dew, going to eat at McDonald's, going to eat at Burger King, walking past some major entity that has their advertisements out front. All of those things are what we call product placements. And if you go to the next slide, you can see this is a scene from the Tom Hanks movie Castaway. And in that movie, FedEx had a preeminent position and lots of advertising. And you can see from here you have Tom Hanks opening one of the FedEx boxes. Okay? Okay, next slide. Okay, media schedule specifies the exact media to use and when to use it. So it says I'm going to place the ads on billboards in June and July and then let them drop off. I'm going to place a magazine ad in every other month in this magazine. I'm going to place one television ad at this time. All of those things would be stuff that you would think about for your media schedule. Okay, next slide. The three main definitions you should really take away from this are reach, which is the percentage of people exposed to an ad campaign in a given time period. So how of the whole population, what's your reach? What percentage are you reaching? Frequency, the number of times a person is exposed to an advertisement. So how frequently they see the advertisement. And then media impact, the qualitative value of a message exposure through a given medium. So if they see the message through television, what's the impact versus seeing the message through newspapers versus the message of seeing the message through the posters they put on bus shelters? What's the impact, of those different things on the purchase behavior of the consumer? Okay, next slide. Okay, there's a couple different ways that advertising patterns can happen. It can be continuous, it can be pulsing, or it can be what we call a flighting schedule. Continuous advertisements means that they're on at a consistent rate, maybe not exactly consistent, but they're not real highs, not real lows, but a consistent, steady rate of seeing the ads every single day. So, for example, 20 ads every single day. Pulsing schedule, you vary the amount of advertising based on when the product is likely to be demanded. So, for example, you would advertise wings or chips or beer maybe the Saturday before any major football game, kind of a pulse type thing. And then flighting schedules are advertising in short, intense bursts, alternating with periods when no advertising is done. So you massively advertise it and then drop it off. So advertise, for example, holiday decorations. You might advertise heavily and then drop it off to nothing. For a given sale, you might advertise extremely heavily, and then obviously once the sale is over, you drop it to nothing. If you look at the next slide, you can see the three different ways. So the continuous is the red line. The pulsing is the purple line. You can see it never really goes to zero, but it goes up and then it drops back down. And then the flighting, it's basically nothing, and then shoots up for March, April, May, June, July, August, and then drops down in September, October. So you can see more of a flighting schedule there. Okay, so maybe that's for pool supplies during that time period, which would make sense for a flighting type schedule. Most people aren't buying, say, pool chemicals in December, so it makes sense to use that flighting schedule. Okay, next slide. Okay, public relations, a little bit different. Public relations are not paid for. They are utilized by companies because they can be quite cheap. So building good relations with the firm's various publics by obtaining favorable publicity, building up a good corporate image, and handling or heading off unfavorable rumors, stories, or events. So, although the public relations and publicity can be very beneficial and very cost effective, it also is not under the direct control of the corporation. So, it can also be a detriment if it goes the wrong way and they get bad publicity. Okay, let me go on to the next slide. Okay, public relations, very believable. In some cases, maybe too believable. In the US, a lot of television stations have eliminated much of their news staff. So every now and then, while you're watching, you'll see a news story that really is advocating, say, a drug for pregnancy. And it looks like it's being hosted by a reporter. Everything looks totally legit, but it's actually been put out by a corporation, and the news entity is just using it for filler space. So people think, oh, well, it's a news story. It's not an advertisement. It's something I should believe, and that's a big problem. So they are very believable, but it can be a problem. Reaches people who avoid salespeople and ads. There are a lot of people that are averse to any kind of sales pitch, and obviously what I just mentioned for the newsrooms, that can be a major negative thing for a consumer. And these are individuals who try to avoid the sales and advertising, and then they see it on a news show and they don't really realize that they're being sold to. Can dramatize a product, company or product. There's I think it's Dawn dishwashing detergent is the best detergent for washing off ducks and other waterfowl that have been subjected to oil spills. And so often you'll see after a big spill, a bunch of people using Dawn detergent to clean off ducks and other marine wildlife. And obviously it dramatizes the company and product quite a bit. And its planned use can be effective and economical. As I mentioned, corporations don't have to pay for the public relations and publicity, but it does have to be carefully managed in order to make sure that the message that you're trying to convey is the one that actually gets out there, and that takes a lot of skill. Okay, next slide. Okay, so some objectives of public relations: introduce new products to manufacturers, introduce new products to consumers, influence government legislation. You see a lot of that in the U.S. right now. Enhance the image of a firm, provide advice and counsel, enhance the image of a city, region, or country. Come to Florida. We have great beaches, great this, great that. We have Walt Disney World. Come to Florida. Come to Florida. Manage a crisis. So, for example, BP, when they had the explosion in the Gulf of Mexico, there's a lot of advertising right now and a lot of public relations type things to try to alleviate the negative impact on BP's image and stock price, and call attention to the firm's involvement with the community. So there's one where, I'm trying to think of I think it's Tide Detergent. There was one of the hurricanes that came through the U.S. They were showing how they sent down powered washing machines, so people could clean their clothes, and how important that was for people and how much of a big benefit that was for people. So it calls attention to the firm's involvement with the community. And that community ideally will remember that involvement, tell friends, tell relatives, and that helps the bottom line of the firm. Okay, next slide. Okay, some different public relation activities. First off, we have press releases, which all of us are familiar with. Your Apple is coming out with a new iPad. They do a press release and they say, hey, on April 29th, we're going to come out with the new iPad, and it's going to have these features. So press release. Corporate identity materials. These are little brochures and pamphlets. If you look here at ACN out in the hallway, there's brochures for the American College of Norway. If you walk around Westchester, which is another obviously corporation, or not a corporation, but a business entity, there's a lot of materials around there saying how Westchester does this or Westchester does that. In the business school, we have a little flyer that says about the College of Business and Public Affairs. So those are all corporate identity materials that are given out to people, given out to different press releases, given out to different press organizations as well. Okay. Speech writing, writing a speech, including different things, writing the speech for the executives in your firm to present. Sponsorships. So I have a a deli and I sponsor a little league team in the United States, and so on the backs of all the little kids is Jim's Deli. That would be an example of a sponsorship. You see this a lot at pro football games, pro baseball games. The changing ads that are all around the field, and so they show the sponsorships of different entities. Race cars, they have stickers and stuff all over the cars showing who sponsors them. All of those things are different ways for public relations to take, different ways for firms to pursue public relations. Company website obviously is really important. It's one of those places as more and more of us use the internet. I think almost everybody is now. I don't think my mom is. But you do a search, and one of the first places you look at is the website for a given firm. Okay? Special events. You're sponsoring a special park cleanup, sponsored by Exxon, and a whole bunch of people are supposed to go out, all the employees of the company, and clean up a park, or clean up a street, or clean up a subway station, things like that. So different special events. Maybe they sponsor a marathon, something like that. And then audio-visual materials, similar to the fake newspaper report that I mentioned, the fake news report that I mentioned just a few minutes ago would be an example of that as well. Okay, next one, sales promotion, our last topic for this particular thing, excuse me. So programs designed to build interest or encourage the purchase of a product during a specified time period. These are things like coupons, contests, sweepstakes, all of those kind of things. Okay, it can target end customers, channel partners, or employees. So hey, if you're as a wholesaler, if you sell the most of our product down the line, your top 5 salespeople will win a new microwave or get a trip to Florida or whatever. But that's enticing the people who work for the wholesaler to work harder. It can also do end customers, sales promotion. Hey, you can the first 1,000 customers who come in, they get this, or they get a special deal, the Black Friday deals. A lot of different ways. Attracts consumer attention. One of the big things in the U.S. is the McDonald's Monopoly game. It comes out every single year, and people collect all the little stickers to stick on their boards, and they eat much more at McDonald's than they should, and some of them evidently win, but I don't know of any. Can be used to dramatize product offers, offers strong incentives to buy. If you know your coupon is going to expire in a certain amount of time, or the discount is going to go away, you're going to buy it more often. For example, right now, GoPro cameras, they have the white 3 Plus model, and if you buy it by the 31st of March, you're supposed to get this extra attachment that costs $50. So that would be an incentive to buy. Invites and rewards quick customer response, as I just mentioned, but the effects are short-lived. As soon as that date is passed, then it doesn't do you any good anymore. Okay? So as we mentioned, next slide, sales promotion directed towards consumers. We talked about this in a bit. Towards consumers, coupons, price deals, refunds, rebates. Rebates are really good for companies because so many people don't follow through and collect all the materials, or they throw some of it out. Because usually you have to have the receipt, you have to have some part of the box, and then you have to have not a coupon, but a little slip that you fill out with the name and address, and then you have to send it all in. And there's lots of different parts, and not everybody follows through with all of it. So rebates are good. You say, hey, we're going to give you $5 back for every one of these you buy, and a lot of people will never fill out the rebates in order to get that $5. Frequency, loyalty, or continuity programs are an example of some sales promotion. Special bonus packs, where if you bought, say, 3 Bic lighters, you get one free. 20% more Tide detergent in a given package. All of those things were things that, it encourages you to buy sooner rather than later. Okay, next slide. Attention, getting consumer promotion, contests, and sweepstakes, as we talked about briefly. So contests based on skills, maybe a radio will have if you answer this question, you win a dinner at a restaurant in town. Sweepstakes is just purely by chance. I did one of these in Australia where I went to a pub, and if It was a James Squire beer, and you spun this little spinner thing, and then wherever it landed, that was the item you got, and you got to spin one time every time you bought a beer. And so, like, I got a keychain out of it, but you could also win bigger prizes as well, or nothing at all. Premiums. Premium would be like if you save up stamps or save up something, and then you can use it to buy something else. So there used to be like green stamps in the United States. You'd save them up, and then you could buy something with the stamps. You see this still at arcades, especially in amusement parks, where if you play long enough, you get tickets, and then you can turn those tickets in to get something. Chuck E. Cheese has those in the U.S., where the little kids, they go running around, and then they get tickets everywhere, and then at the end they can turn them in for some kind of a prize. And then sampling, premier technique for generating new product trial. Costco, big warehouse store in the U.S., there's a multitude of different individuals around giving samples. They might give samples of chips, they might give samples of maple syrup, they might give samples of meat, of cheese, of fruits, and then people try them, and then they're more likely to buy the package after they try them. This is also done when you go to the dentist in the U.S. When you leave, you get a free toothbrush and a free tube of toothpaste, and usually a free floss. And all of these help you try different products or different types of toothpaste, for example, and maybe you'll buy that product the next time you go out to buy a full-size tube. Okay, next slide. That's it. So I know I went through pretty quick. Normally in class, this lecture would probably take about an hour, but we did it in just over 36 minutes. So as I mentioned, I'll be around if you have questions. It's pretty straightforward. I read your book. If you have questions, email me or talk to me in office hours, or if I'm still at ACN, you can talk to me for the next 2 weeks. Okay? So thank you very much and have a great night. Take care. Bye-bye.